Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be on this podium with such great entrepreneurs in the audience. So I hope I'll entertain you a little bit because I don't think I can inform you. The myth of the unicorn. We all hear about unicorns. Everyone wants to be a unicorn. And for years, people used to criticize Israel. Where is your unicorn, Israel? They used to say, why are there no big companies in Israel? You all sell too fast, you all sell too short, your greedy venture capitalists push you to sell early, or because you're inexperienced entrepreneurs, you sell too quickly, and it's a terrible thing. And there was a very famous gentleman, he's still famous, and he's super successful, more successful than me, Michael Moritz from Sequoia. And he always used to come to Israel, at least he did several times, and say, hey, Israel, where's your Nokia? Well, I think today we'd have to look around and say, no attack on Nokia. I do not mean any offense to Nokia. But putting all your eggs in one basket, having an economy dependent on one giant company that is the bulwark of the economy. And remember, in 2000 period, I think at the height, Nokia was worth $245 billion, and it accounted for 4% of Finland's GDP. That kind of dependence can be dangerous. And I think since Nokia has declined to some degree, I think total now between the Microsoft piece and the current other infrastructure piece, Nokia's total worth is now about $30 billion. But guess what's happened in Finland? More entrepreneurship, more VC funding, more startups, and more serial entrepreneurs. And guess what? Israel led the way. Israel already got that message. I don't know if you tried to do it by intent, or it just happened because of the nature of Israeli infrastructure, economic system, and the Israeli entrepreneur's attitude. But you were already ahead of that game. You lead the world now per capita, of course, in entrepreneurship in terms of funding. This is the telecom part of Nokia, the phone part, was only sold for $7.9 billion, and there was a huge write-off lately. In Israel, comparatively, look at just the top 20 startups, worth far more than that. So I run a fund, Blumberg Capital, based here in San Francisco. We have offices in Tel Aviv, and one of our colleagues is in New York. Our LPs want us to build a portfolio. And I think if you're managing an economy or watching an economy, you should also think about portfolio risk and diversification, and not be focused on only one big company or everybody has to become a giant. It's okay to sell and then start again. Another criticism we hear about entrepreneurship is often from the press that, oh, these entrepreneurs are just greedy. And once they sell, they just take their billions and go off and eat bonbons on a tropical island. That's not my experience. My experience with great entrepreneurs is that they are like artists. They have something inside that they want to push out, they want to make impact, and they want to do it again and again. And Israel's now benefiting dramatically from that serial entrepreneurship, which we've seen also here in the Valley. And guess what? These two ecosystems are very closely aligned. Israel and the United States are probably the closest of all the ecosystems that we've seen in terms of the entrepreneurial venture capital network. And it's a different model from the model of many European countries which tried to build giant companies and then have those companies be their winners. I don't think that's necessarily a good strategy. And I think the strategy that Israel's adopted, again, whether by intent or just by circumstance, serves you well. And I wouldn't argue that you should abandon it. If you can build some great companies, like a Nokia, like Teva, for example, or Checkpoint, or Amdocs, or I could go on, that's excellent. It's wonderful. Good for those companies. But let's not criticize these entrepreneurs that sell and then start something new, and entrepreneurs who, VCs who invest, and for a variety of reasons decide that, you know what, you may not be the world's biggest standalone company. It's okay to fold into a Cisco, a Microsoft, an Intel, a Google. These are all great acquirers, and they often add jobs, they add to the growth of the economy, and they allow you to create more and better products. One of our companies sold not too long ago, a company called Cyvera, and it's an amazing company in the cybersecurity space. And they had barely sold any product in the market, and yet when they sold into Palo Alto Networks, the next few years, their product is out because Palo Alto had a huge network of sales force that could help bring that out. So this is the kind of thing that there's added benefit to selling and growing, and you don't have to only stick in one big company forever to realize your dreams. One more thing, a lot of people talk about how the unicorns are a symbol of excess and problems in the economy. And I would like to slay that myth in a different angle, not from just the Israel angle about you never had one, but the angle of like what's wrong with society when we have these, and is it a sign of terrible times to come? I think if we go back to, say, the 2000 timeframe, we had a lot of really fake unicorns. Remember that the NASDAQ peaked at 5,000 in 2000, and now it's at 4,700 or something like that. So it's never even reached back to its prior from 16 years ago. And that's not even inflation adjusted. The second thing is that the PE ratio of the NASDAQ in 2000 was at 175. And today it's at about 21. And the Dow's at about 18. So if people say, oh, we're headed for a giant crash, that a lot of the world is saying, a lot of the VCs, later stage especially in public markets, are saying, oh, the world's very uncertain and prices are coming down. It's true, prices are coming down. But I think it's mostly a reflection of pricing rationalization in reality, rather than an impending doom and declining sales. And the impending doom that caused the crash of 2000 was far worse and far more impactful than I think what's going to be coming forward. So I still think it's a great time, probably the best time ever to be an entrepreneur. Whether you're in Silicon Valley or Israel or Hyderabad or Shanghai, it's a great time to be an entrepreneur. The net negative forces against you are less now, even with a downturn potentially coming, than they were, say, in the 2000 time frame, looking forward for those years. Because in those times, since then, the world has gotten easier for you. It's gotten more capital efficient to start companies, right? There are more opportunities for funding from angels. And I'm a fan of angels. We're a venture fund, but we work a lot with angels. And angels have gotten smarter, they've gotten more professional, they've gotten more diverse and spread around the world. And it's a good thing, because they find you first, even before most early stage funds find you as an entrepreneur. It's a good thing. You work with them closely, you come to us, or we'll co-invest with them. And that's a healthy thing for society to have. And again, guess what? Even in Finland, back to Nokia, they have more angels now than they did before. So it's all heading the right way. Second thing is that SaaS, smartphones, social networks, all which didn't even practically exist in 2000, make it much easier to grow global. Israeli companies have known about going global from pretty much inception because your local market's so small. But if you were a big European country, like France, Britain, Germany, et cetera, you could kind of grow a company of a medium size and be kind of satisfied that that's pretty good. Israel always had to compete at world class or die, sink or swim. Very Darwinian. And I think, again, that's good because that's the way the world really works. Protectionism will still always be around, but it's a declining force eventually. The market finds its level, water finds its level, and eventually the best products are going to win out, because the consumer ultimately decides what they're going to choose. So that's why these new platforms make it possible for companies, whether they're based in Israel or whatever, to reach hundreds of countries in a couple of years. We have a couple in our portfolio, Nutanix and Hootsuite, just to name two. Neither are Israeli, but in 7 years, one of them sells in 200 countries around the world, one of them sells in, I think, over 80. In 7 years to do that. 2000, you couldn't really do that very easily. It was much harder. So again, the world is coming your way if you're an entrepreneur. The tide is at your back. Even though prices are coming down, that's a rationalization of multiplier expectations that were overinflated. And part of the reason that happened, and I'll just go to my old days, I started my career as a securities analyst for T. Rowe Price, way back right after college. And then we used to have a lot of IPOs going, but they were young IPOs, early. And they would go public for 100 million valuation, 200 million, things like that. And what happened in the meantime is that there were things like Sarbanes-Oxley and change of soft dollar commissions and a variety of other regulations and infrastructure changes and economic structure changes in the stock market that caused a lot of folks to say, wait a minute, if we're private and we're doing well, let's stay private. Let's not risk the lawsuits, let's not risk the costs of going public so early. So a lot of folks started to stay private longer. And the value accrued to entrepreneurs and VCs, and instead of the traditional public market buyers. So you have more companies growing faster than ever. You have companies that can, oops, where's the slide? Gone. Okay, I don't need the slide. You don't have the stock market that was so accommodating to early stage exits, and so now you have companies going public later. And now what's happened is that the pricing has come down. It's okay. Pricing probably was inflated, because what happened is that there became a supply and demand imbalance. Large buyers of public companies that would go on IPOs like T. Rowe Price, Wellington, Fidelity, couldn't get enough from the big investment banks like Goldman when they were taking out deals. And so they said to the VCs, hey, we'll come in while it's still private. That was okay for a while, but the demand grew so big because there was a shortage of supply that prices started creeping up, and they got overinflated, and now they've come down. and it's okay. Don't worry, we're going to all be fine. Thank you.